Hi there, I'm Carol, Crafty Grandma, and today we are going to be making fruit quartet pot holders. Keep in mind, this is a live video. Anything can happen. I can mess up, I can do things right. You never know what's going to go on here. But we are going to make these little pot holders today. We needed a bunch of different fabrics, and I put it down in the description, and you will also need the pattern. It's in a set of patterns, quilted gifts from your scraps and stash, and it's available on Annie's catalog. Link is in the description below, and the reason you will need the pattern is because the pattern provides all of the applique designs. I use a feature in Adobe where I print off my directions in a booklet form. That way they can fit into a smaller binder, which I don't have any of right here. They're all out there. But this way I can put it into a 3-ring page cover and keep it there. But as far as the actual appliques go, the patterns, you need to print them off at 100%. And I will be right back because I just noticed something that you can't hear. Okay, sorry about that. Had a little animal issue I had to take care of. She was being fussy. So anyway, you will need to be able to print off the patterns so that you can get the applique designs, and you can print them double-sided. You're not going to need to cut them out or anything like that, so printing double-sided is perfectly acceptable. I've got the Steam-A-Seam 2 here. That's what we're going to use to make our applique. And in the direction, or in the description, not directions, description below, I put that you needed different colored scraps. This is going to be my apple. So this is not a scrap, this is a full piece of fabric, but I like it. I think it's going to make a nice apple. This one is going to be my pear. So this is a light green. You can use yellow if you prefer yellow pears, you know, whatever colors you prefer. I still have strips of red, white, and blue fabric left from sometime in June, so it's almost the end of July, so been using it for about 6 weeks now. So I believe this will be the 4th project I'm using some of the strips on. So I'm going to use those to be the cherries. Purple, obviously, these are going to be my grapes. And of course you can do grapes in whatever color you prefer. Looking through my stash, I wasn't able to find a green that I was happy with for the leaves other than this, so I will be breaking open this jelly roll and using some of the strips. I do not believe, I looked and all of the leaves look like they will fit in a 2.5 inch wide strip, so this should be just fine and dandy. If you have some extra strips lying around, that's what you're going to want to use. This is my stems. This is the brown I'm going to use for all my stems. And again, it's more than scraps, but it is what it is. That's what I have. The fruits themselves are going to sit on this fabric. And this is a bright white fabric. It does have a slight pattern to it, but not much of one, but it does have a slight pattern to it. And the directions show black, actually. Hold on. Yes, dear. Okay, I hear you. The directions show a black border around the outside. The materials list says a multicolored print. I was looking for 1-inch buttons, and although I have a million buttons and I've got 1.5 inch buttons and 2-inch buttons and 5/8 inch buttons, I didn't have many 1-inch buttons. The only buttons I had that were 1 inch that I had 3 of, because you need 3 buttons, are orange. I therefore went into my orange bin and looked for some orange fabric and found these. This, I believe, I'm going to use as the visual front outside border. And this I'm going to use as the back, because the materials list includes 3/8 of a yard of solid purple. And the solid purple is actually the back of the hot pad. I'm not going to use purple. I'm going to continue with the orange theme and go that route. Got something on my shirt. Then it also calls for, what does it call it? Heat resistant batting. Heat resistant batting. So I have this. I have a lot more of it, so I'm going to be just cutting from here. And it says black and brown fine line permanent fabric markers. I'm not 100% certain where that's going to be. I've looked through the directions. I should say I scanned through the directions. I didn't read them perfectly. And a cosmetic blush and cotton swabs. Again, didn't find it. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. All-purpose thread to match the fabrics, white quilting thread, and basic sewing tools and supplies. I have the bright white thread, cotton thread, on my machine, and I'm going to use it all the way around. There might be a point where I pull out a different color. I don't think so. I've been looking at this, and yeah, I could pull out the dark green for the leaves, but I'm not certain. I'm debating, do I want to try and find the brown to go on the stems? I'm thinking I'm going to just go with the bright white, and that may look like crap. I have no idea. But that's where we're at, and that's what we're going to do. I don't know why this is sitting here. Let me get this out of the way. There we go. And so now we have everything all set up. We are ready to go. The first thing it says is to cut 4 6 3/4 inch A squares from the cream print. So the cream print in my case is this bright white. Let's get this stuff out of the way. And it says cut 4 6 3/4 inches. So we're only going to need one strip that's 6 3/4 inches wide. So I do have a torn end to this fabric. It's not on here well, but it is torn. No, we got all sorts of stuff going on with this fabric. Multiple layers of it. Oh, well, let's see, how wide is this? That's a good width. Let's use that. And I'm going to set this off to the side. And I am going to re-tear it because it has obviously been a long time since I tore this fabric. It's been sitting there forever. That didn't work out so well, did it? Let's try tearing from this side. That didn't work out either. Alright, I'm just going to go to the other side here. We've got like 8 inches, so we've got plenty of fabric to work with here. There we go. Now we have a nice straight edge to work with. Let's get it pressed. This fabric feels like it's been washed. I don't know why it would have been pre-washed. I don't pre-wash most of my fabric. But like I said, it's obviously been in my stash for a very long time. I can tell just by looking at it. It's been around the bend a few times. Sorry, when my iron doesn't get used for a period of time, it turns off the heating element, so I have to let it rest for a while before it recovers and can be used. Let's get a little more stiffness back into this fabric. Clipper scissors, there you are. I'm looking at this fabric and I'm having a hard time telling which is right side and which is wrong side. I believe the side I'm ironing on right now is the wrong side. It does look that way. Oh, dang it. Got a fold and a wrinkle in there. Stay flat. I have my kitty cat helper sitting just over here. She's very concerned about what I'm doing. Nope, never mind. Now she doesn't care. There's a bird outside. Okay, there we go. And a fold. And I'm lining up the cut or the torn edge, the edge that I just tore. Making sure that it's straight all the way across. Press that seam in. And then I'm going to fold it a second time. If I don't get hairs all over the place. There we go. Again, still making certain that we've got all of the edge of the fabric straight. Now we know that the grain on this fabric is straight, and especially because it's going to be a wall hanging. I mean, the pieces are so small that they probably won't have any effect on it. But because it's going to be hanging on a wall, you want to make sure that the fabric isn't cockeyed. If the fabric isn't on grain, it's going to hang funny. It's just not going to hang correctly. That being said, we are using another fabric that I'm going to use for the backing. I'm not going to be able to tear it because I have just enough fabric to be the backing. I do not have enough to do the tearing. Alright, so now let's get our fabric cut. When cutting fabric, you want to always try and use the smallest ruler available to you. This is my go-to ruler. I use it for almost everything. That's why I fold my fabric into fourths like I do, because that way it fits under this ruler. If I were to have left it lengthwise, or just a double fold, the one fold, I would have to go from this side to this side. I'd have to get the longer ruler out, which has more of a chance as I'm cutting that the ruler's going to wobble. So this is my go-to ruler. This is the one I use whenever I can. And now I'm just trimming off the torn edge that I made. And I now have a second kitty cat coming to visit. Hi, sweet girl. That means they're all here because there's only 2 of them in the house. I'm now going to use the 2 ruler method. What that means is I've got a second ruler. This ruler is not 6 3/4 inches wide. But this is the ruler I'm going to use to cut with because this one is not 14 inches tall. So it's not tall enough. So I take this ruler and I go to 6 3/4 and I line that up on the edge that I just cut. I line that all up. Then I take my favorite ruler and I butt it up against that one. And I make sure that the bottom is lined up square on the fold. Move that ruler out of the way and cut. This is what I have left over. This is scraps. This we're not saving. My favorite ruler now gets set aside because I need 4 6 3/4 inch squares. So find the edge of the fabric. There we go. And line up your ruler on the bottom and the top because it's 6 3/4. So you should be able to line it up in both spots. There's not an 1/8 of an inch anywhere, so we don't have to worry about that. And we're going to just cut off the selvage because we don't need the selvage. Now we have to turn our fabric this time. And measure to 6 3/4. Making sure to line up the top and the bottom and the 6 3/4. That way you get a square. And that's probably not going to show up very well. Contrast is pretty good. I am going to iron these pieces. I will not spray them with any more of the Best Press. I do not want any more of the best press on here because I do not want to manipulate the threads at all. I just want to press out these lines. I could just cut around them. I don't have to do this. Cutting around them is a perfectly acceptable option. I just don't like to waste fabric. I'm weird that way, even though I have a ton of it. Heaven forbid I get rid of any of it. Because you know, as soon as I do, it's going to be something I need. Oops, that's 7 3/4. Always check your measurements. I have done it multiple times. I've actually done it on video where I ended up cutting something wrong. So make sure. That's why I point out that anything can happen with me. You never know. And you want to be absolutely square. Because this is such a small project, it's not as likely to occur. But when you're doing bigger projects, you want to make sure when you're doing these projects, you're getting into good practices. Because when you start doing bigger projects, if we were starting out with a square like this, and we made even 1/8 of an inch error, and we were using 12 of them across, or 8 of them across, and attaching them all together, you'd end up with an entire inch of error by the time you get them all put together. So just that tiny bit does matter. You want to be very careful that you're measuring correctly and keeping things square. Otherwise, you will end up with a mess. Okay, we now have our 4 squares. Excellent. And we still have a little bit of white fabric left over. So we fold it up and we move it over here. Next thing it says, cut 8 2-inch by 6 3/4 inch C strips and 8 9 3/4, 2 4 6, how much did I have left? 12. We might have a problem because I didn't do math very well. Let's see. So these pieces of fabric, I don't remember where exactly I got them. They're 19 3/4 inches by 20 inches. So they're not exactly square. They're close, but not quite. And when I was thinking about this earlier, I neglected to do part of the math. So we're going to have to make sure I can get this accomplished correctly. And it has a bunch of wrinkles in it, so that's why we're pressing. And I probably used a bit too much best press, but it looked like it was pretty solid in there, and I did not want to take a chance of not being able to get it out. I think I got this recently because I've been buying Halloween and Thanksgiving stuff. Since everybody's been advertising Christmas stuff, I figured next month we'd be seeing all the Halloween and Thanksgiving stuff, so I wanted to get a jump on it before it was all gone. All right, now let's see. Which side is this? This is the 19 3/4 side. Let's verify that. Yes, this is the 20-inch side. This is where I'm cutting my strips, so the fold is going this way. And like I said, I'm not able to tear this fabric because I need every bit of it. Because I'm using a smaller piece than it actually calls for. The amount of fabric it called for in the directions was bigger than this piece, but this is the piece I want to use. And now I'm going to need 2-inch strips all the way across. Hey Google, are you awake? Hey Google. Hey Google. What is 9.75 plus... What is 9.75 plus 9.75? 9.75 plus 9.75 is 19.5. All right, so we should have just enough because we have 19 3/4 inches. So we can get 2 strips out of here, and we need 8 of them. Let's check. This I am going to cut and not trim off the edges because we are going to use this for another purpose later on. And that'll square us up. That squares that up. And I said we need 8. No, we just need, yes, we need 8. So we need 4 2-inch strips. 1. Now I'm lining up against the cut edge and the bottom fold. 2. 3. 4. And now move that off to the side just a little bit. Let's see, how long are these as they sit? So if I trim off the fold, I have 4 itty bitty little folds in here. Itty bitty little folds. Turn them around. 9 3/4. Making sure we've got the top and the bottom aligned. Little itty bits. Okay, perfect. Bad is it? Okay. Thought the microphone was sticking out. It felt weird. Okay, so now we have part of it. Next we need 8 6 3/4 inch strips. Hey Google, what's 6.75 plus 6.75?
6.75 plus 6.75 is 13.5.
And so we're only going to be able to get 2 also out of each of these strips. So I'll need 4 strips. Okay, that side's not. So this time, instead of cutting off the folded edge, I am going to cut off and measure from the cut end on the other side. So I just trimmed off the very bottom. Turn it around, and 6 3/4 inches. Let's see here. Okay. Then we also need 4 tabs. I lied. We need 8. And does that fit? It does. So what I'm going to do is, let's see, what size is this, top to bottom? Two and 3/4 inches high. So now I'm going to trim off the folded edge. Again, just trim. Smallest amount I can get. Two and 3/4 inches tall. Now all I need to do is get the little curve in. I am going to see if this fabric is thin enough, because I think it is. There's my pen. And I drew, which you are not going to be able to see, but I drew a line that curves there and curves there. Stacking them all back up. And I am getting my really, really, really sharp scissors. And being very, very gentle. And I now have 8 tabs. We will get to those later. And I still have a little bit of fabric left over. Okay, what does the directions tell me to do next? Cut 4 9 3/4 inch squares from solid purple. So I discussed earlier that this is what I'm using for the back, which is where they want the solid purple. And again, not remembering exactly where it came from, but it's very wrinkled and stiff. So we need to loosen it up a little bit. Now it's funny when I say that. I'm loosening it, but I'm actually strengthening it too, because the best press, if fabric is really wimpy and so on, then this will stiffen it up. So this loosens it up while it's wet so that I can press out the wrinkles, and then after it's dried, it makes it a little stiffer. And it claims on the bottle that it has soil resistant properties also. I don't know. I work under the belief that there are guidelines that say that if you lie on your packaging, you have to change it, but I've had that bottle for a really long time. I've got the refill bottle down there. I just use this to work with, and then I've got a big bottle below that I refill from. So they could have changed their packaging by now, and I just don't know it. And this time it does not matter which way I fold it, because we are going to be cutting out 4 absolute squares. I just need to get it as straight and as I possibly can so that we can get the squares cut out. They all come out even. Actually, you know what I can do? I can fold it over the other way and cut all 4 squares at the same time. So I folded it this way. Now if I fold it this way and just trim off the folded edges, I should be able to get all 4 squares in just a couple cuts. Okay, let's see here. That ruler is too small. That one's bigger than I want to use. That one's not big enough by 1/4 of an inch, so we're using the big one. Oh, one of my strips fell. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim off these folded edges. And again, as close as I can. To the fold. And there we go, we've got the fold off. Now we're going to turn and do it this way. Same thing, as close to the edge as you could possibly get to cut that fold off. Now we've got somewhere to line up though. Instead of just lining up on the fold, we've got a straight cut edge that we just made. So we want to line it up there. We got the fold out. Do we have all of it? Yep. Both layers. Now this time we want to make sure we're at 9 3/4, and we're going to square up to the bottom. This side has been cut by us, this side has been cut by us. 9 3/4. Not much fabric there. I knew it was going to be really tight. And last but not least, and now we can line up at the top, at the bottom, and make sure we're at 9 3/4 on the side. And we have a perfect square. I should say we have 4 perfect squares. Now keep in mind, the grain on this fabric is probably not exact because we were not able to tear it and line it up for the grain. The reason I'm telling you this is I can plainly see that there are grains of fabric going at a slight angle. It's very evident on the wrong side of this fabric. Not going to be able to show it to you, but I can see it very plainly. All right, what does it say now? Cut 4 9 3/4 inch squares and 4 tab pieces from the heat-resistant batting. Heat-resistant batting. I am going to do the tabs first. I'm going to get my other scissors. There we go. And the reason I'm going to do the tabs first is because I am just going to take one of these tabs that we already know is the right size and use it as a pattern. I got too much stuff on my table here. Now remember, they were 2 inches wide. I wonder if that could be big enough. Oh, it is. It's 10 inches. Excellent. And I find it interesting they've got us cutting the heat resistant. Probably just use batting here, but for visual consistency's sake, I understand why they're using it, because these buttons that are going to get sewn on are not going to be heat resistant, and that's where the fabric's joined together. So I don't know if it makes complete sense, but hey. Alright, we've got 3. I'm going to cut some squares first. I don't want to waste good real estate until I have to. Oh, and I need that ruler back. Nine and 3/4. Nine and 3/4. Did I get the corner? Almost. So close. Okay, so there's one. Is that going to give me 2? Nope. 9.5. Alright, so then we go this way. Do the double ruler thing. Need it all on the cutting board. It doesn't work very well if it's off the side of the table. 9 and 3/4. And I am lining up on my fold. Not vital to the world because we are going to trim it up. There we go. Because we're only going to get 1 out of this. Right. Let's sneak a tab out of here. Okay. Two more. Put these buttons over there. They're in my way. too. Trim this off and throw this away because I'm not going to be needing it. This and this are little pieces, but you never know what you might need them for. And last but not least, let's get these two squared up. So on this point, I'm measuring, making sure the top and the bottom are straight, and putting one side of it at 9 3/4 because it's not square. So now we turn and trim that side off, and everything gets trimmed down to 9 3/4. That's 9 1/2. Almost did that wrong. Then I would have had to break open a brand new bag of this stuff. Again, we line up the top and the bottom, and one part of the side is at 9 3/4, but not necessarily all of it because it's not cut evenly. Square it up, trim it off, all right, so voila. We now have all of the pieces we need to put together our potholders. But before we do that, we need to go and put the appliques of the different fruits onto these. So we're going to clean up our quilting supplies. Which I'm sure we will use again in the future, but right now we've completed that. We've got the fabric for those things all out of the way. And now it says completing the applique. Prepare applique templates using the pattern given. Trace applique templates on paper side of fusible web, leaving 1/2 inch between for number to cut as directed on patterns. Cut out, leaving approximately 1/4 inch margin around each. Follow manufacturer's instruction and fuse applique pieces to fabric scraps as indicated in the pattern. Cut out untraced lines. Arrange applique pieces on a squares referring to the placement diagram for position and fuse in place. Machine stitch around each piece using matching thread and a narrow zigzag or buttonhole stitch. Okay, so it just says go. I'm going to start with the grapes, just because the grapes are on the top of the paper. And I do have little bits of scraps of, because applique is small. Let's see. That leaf will fit in there. Actually, will that leaf fit in there? It will. Excellent. Am I drawing on the wrong? I am drawing on the wrong side. So I'm tracing around my leaf. And so the directions said to cut around this, leaving 1/4 of an inch and blah, blah, blah. I don't know why I put these scissors away. I knew I was going to need them. Just trim around it so that you have space to work with. And I'm breaking into the jelly roll. Slide the over the top. Throw it on the ground to become a kitty toy. And take off a strip. I'm fairly confident I'm only going to need one. I was trying to keep it as much as a roll as I could, but I suspected that was going to not work out well for me. Okay. That's one leaf. Now when you separate this, make sure the sticky stuff stays with the side you drew on. Because you need the side you drew on to be able to cut out the leaf later on. That's leaf 1. These aren't going to work for leaves. This is garbage. I should probably throw that away because otherwise I'll start getting them all mixed up. And this is the side I draw on for leaf number 2. It does appear that leaf 1 and 2 are the same. It does, and it does say in the directions, cut 2. That's just like later on, they make the comment about the stem, cut 3, reversing 1. Well, why wouldn't I just follow what you already have? Because they already have it reversed. They have all 3 stems on the picture. So I'm like, I don't understand why you told me to do that, but I'm just going to make pictures of each of them. There we go. Put this back over here because I'm going to need it again. Got those right there. I need a stem, which is very short. There we go. I'm just going to need a little strip of brown. bitty strip of brown. My guess is I grabbed too much, but hey, we'll live with it. Go that way. Go that way. There we go. Okay. That's that. We're going to leave that there. And last but not least on this, we need grapes. On the grapes, there are additional lines on the inside of the applique area. Those are stitch lines for later. All you need to draw now is the outline of the grape. Should be all I need of that. If you are so inclined, you may press this onto the fabric that we just did. If you do that, that's fine. Just make sure you didn't use, like I did, a Fix-On pen. You need to make sure you have either used a permanent pen or a pencil or something like that. If you use the Fix-On pen, if I were to go over there now and to press this and press this onto the steam-a-seam, my line would disappear. And that would completely defeat the purpose of all the work we just did. All right, now I am going to cut around the lines that we just did. Something sticky on my thumb. Probably a little piece of this stuff. Grapes are cut out. We have grapes. Stem. No, don't stay. Itty bitty little stem. There's one leaf. All right, now thinking of something as I was doing that. It does say on here that it is printer friendly. And I printed this off. The catch would be, you would still need at least 3 copies of this to get all 4 of these pieces out, because the stem goes underneath the grapes and the leaves are underneath the grapes at one point. So if you wanted to have, or are they on top of? No, they're underneath. So in order to, if you wanted to print this on, directly onto here, so you'd have these exact lines to cut from, you would need to print this picture alone 3 times. So you'd have a lot of wasted stuff. You can do it. I'm just letting you know that you are going to need to cut it more than, or print it more than once. All right, the grapes are shown on the bottom, so we'll take from the bottom square. Doesn't matter which square, really doesn't. I'm just doing it because it's there. And the grapes, those are my grapes. They sit at kind of an angle. Keeping in mind you're going to have a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, so don't go putting it up against the side. And keeping in mind we are now going to flip this. And place it down. This was going that way. We'll keep it going that way. Do that. They have this going underneath at one point. There we go. And up. And then our leaves are just slightly under. I'm going to guess that's where the fabric, permanent fabric marker comes in. It looks like it has little stems coming off of this, that big stem. And lift up our grapes. This one kind of goes over here. And that's not going to work for me because I'm off the edge of the fabric. All right, let's see. Can I lift up all these pieces as one? Come on, stay there. Stem decided it wanted to escape. Come on, stay put. No, that's too much. And it's still too close to the edge, but let's see. Let's have you go down a little bit more. There we go. So I was trying to get it as close as I could to the picture that they're showing on the directions. Come on. Looks like a little piece of key got in there. There we go. And voila, we have grapes. I'm happy with that. I'm going to make make sure that I've got 1/4 of an inch. Yep, they're fine there. Yep, that's fine. Yep. If you want to be very particular, you can measure, center, square it all up, do whatever makes you happy to get it perfectly centered. I am not one of those people. So I now have grapes. To seal it and make sure that it stays on, we go to the iron, which is probably cooled down by now. Yeah. Put the iron down. Lift the iron up, get some water. And press. And there we go. We have grapes. Obviously, we're not done with that. We still have to top stitch around, or blanket stitch, or whatever we're going to do. But we're going to wait and do all of them together. There's no reason to go back and forth to the sewing machine. Now we need another stem. Is that going to be long enough? That's going to be long enough. Excellent. Does it go down anywhere else? Nope. Stem, 2 leaves. I'm sensing a pattern here. All right, can I fit them on that way? I can. Excellent. Last but most definitely not least, the apple. And that does not fit the apples. So let's get a brand new piece of paper. Squeeze this as far into the corner as we can. No, don't do that. Just trying to cut directly on the line. That's not what we're doing yet. Kitty fur. And you're probably asking yourself, what do you do when you go to use this and you realize you've already cut something out of it? It happens to me all the time. It's not something I'm not used to. And again, I point out, you are welcome to iron this on if you'd like. Feel free. I put it on the wrong side. Dang. There we go. Let's see. Are we still going to fit? We are. Now I trim it. Garbage. And the apple is on top. Come on. There we go. Apple. Stem. Something I am finding interesting is that it doesn't say anywhere. There are a couple places it says to reverse, like in the pear that we're going to do next. It says the pear stem, cut 2 brown, reverse 1. These are not drawn on here to be the mirror image of what's on the paper. They're actually, the stuff that's on the paper is identical to this. So the template that we're drawing from should be reversed. So this stem is going up and to the right. No, if I was looking at it to the left, sorry. When I put it on here, it is reversed. Okay, because we have to put the steam seam on the back of the fabric. So this template that I'm drawing from should be the reverse image of what I see on the final product, and it's not. So that could be confusing to someone who's new to quilting. Typically, your applique, when you see the finished product, is the reverse of the template you're drawing from. And they didn't do that here. I don't know why. I'm just improvising and putting things where I want them to be. Far in, all right, so. That's right up against there. That still gives me my 1/4 inch. That's good. I'm worried about the other side though, where this leaf goes. This one stays on top of the apple. And pokes in right at the base. That's not too bad. And now we have our apple. I'm going to move this leaf down just a smidge. Give me a little more sewing room when I sew around that stem. Alrighty, let's go to the iron. It's been clicking while I've been over there, so yeah, it didn't have time to really cool down. And there's our apple. Pear is next. This time we have 2 stems and 4 leaves and 2 pieces of fruit. Come on. Sticky part does not want to stay with the lined paper. There we go. I forgot to measure. We have 1/4 inch around? Yeah, 1/2 inch. 3/4. Yeah, we're good. Leaves. One. Two. Three. Four. Let's see, can these go together? They can. Excellent. Nope, 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 nope. Gotta stay with the right paper. There we are. Leaves and the pears. Ooh, I made it. this out of the way. I'm wondering something. Let me check. Because of course, as I'm standing there cutting, I'm thinking. With batting, you have to stitch a quilt within a certain number of inches in order for the batting to not pucker. And I've never wondered, because this is for all intensive purposes our batting. The Insulbrite is. It gives me all sorts of other things, care instructions, how you can use it, do not use in the microwave, a pattern to make an oven mitt. It does not tell me if there is a specific distance that I have to stitch. The reason I'm wondering is Warm and Natural, which I use quite frequently. That's the majority of what I use for my batting is Warm and Natural. It has a 10-inch distance, so you can stitch up to 10 inches apart and still not have the batting be not fall apart. It's not really fall apart, it's more like it can clump together if you use it too much and you wash it too much. If it's just hanging on a wall, it's not going to make any difference anyway, but I digress. The Insulbrite doesn't tell me how far, because I'm trying to think what I've got. I've got another one that's, I think it's Quilter's Cotton, or something to that effect. That's the name of the brand. And it needs 8 inches, no more than 8 inches between stitching. Because what we're going to have here is 6 1/4 inches, because it's the square is 6 3/4. Well, no, because the batting goes behind this too. So, yeah, it's going to be 9 inches. I'm guessing since it's it's synthetic, it's not real fabric. It doesn't have a distance, and that's why it really doesn't have us quilting anything. It says machine quilt around fruit and leaves and in the ditch of borders with quilting thread. So yeah, I guess we're going back to that 6 inches that I was talking about, because it does say to stitch in the ditch around the border. These stems are tiny. Alrighty. There we go. Here is number 2 on the picture. Again, it doesn't matter where it goes. I'm just being silly. Alright, and do the stems. Not really. There. And this one. Oh, wait, they've got a leaf behind it. That's good. That gives it some depth. Let's do that. I think that's too close. Yeah, that's too close. Oops. That's never happened before. That's new. Let's see if I can get that back. What happened was the sticky side of the steam-a-seam separated from the cut fabric and stayed on the new fabric. And that would be one of the reasons why you would want to iron it on. But again, then you have to just remember not to use Fix-On. Put this down a little bit further. Do I have 1/4 of an inch down there now? Yeah, barely. I need to lift that up a little bit. Dang it. There, that there. Now you two come back over here. There we go. That works better. All right, and this leaf, second leaf goes on top. Oh, this one goes behind that one. That's going in front. And here we go. Now we have pairs. And as I've been doing this, I've been saying, well, no, that's in front of, that's behind, back and forth. That's how I'm doing it like the picture is. Is someone going to go out and find your pattern that you have made and bring a picture of it and stand next to what you have completed and say, those leaves aren't where they belong. You should have put the leaves further up. They should have been over. They should have been facing the left instead of the right. That one should be in front of that one. No. Nobody's going to know what the picture looked like. I happen to like the layout they have, so I am following along with the layout. I made a change here because I didn't want to mess with some of the fabrics. So there was a point where one leaf was supposed to be in front of another leaf, and I didn't worry about it because I liked it just the way I had it. And I didn't feel like dealing with it. But if you want to follow it to the letter, follow it to the letter. If you want to make your own adjustments, make your own adjustments. It's your quilt or project. It's not actually a quilt. It's your project. You do with it what you want. I don't think this is going to fit a leaf, but it might. No, no, no. Let's get the 3 stems done first. Now, and something else to consider. The very bottom of this stem, it's got it kind of curved. When we do the blanket stitch, it's going to be almost impossible to get it that pretty to look like a perfect curve. So if it doesn't, it doesn't. It's not a tragedy of life. Those are a bunch of little scraps. I don't think we're going to get much out of any of those anymore. Come on. So yeah, a little over half a strip, or 3/4 of a strip, just around, right around 3/4 of a strip, was all I needed for the leaves. And now the cherries. So because these cherries are somewhat roundish, they do have a little dip in them. I wrote the word top where they go, just because I wanted to make sure that I got them straight. They didn't look really stupid. Now, I do have a bunch of scraps here, and I am putting them all back in to the bag. Oops, lost one. Because, as you saw, there are times when you need itty-bitty little pieces of scrap for applique. And I will put a link down below for Amazon, or in the description, or whatever. I will find a way to put something on there for a link for the Steam-A-Seam for Amazon. But it's not the cheapest thing in the world. It's not the most expensive either. But when you use it, you use a ton. I mean, we used almost 2 sheets. And if I hadn't kept the scraps from the last time I did it, from the last applique I did, we would have used even more. Come on, what are we doing here? Oh, there's a staple in the packaging. That's what was getting in my way. And on the shelf it goes, so it's ready for use next time. I have no idea why I pulled out 2 strips of this. Know that I do not need anywhere near that much. So it looks like our cherry is just about exactly 2 inches. So I'm going to trim off as much of this excess stuff as I can. Come on. This piece is determined to leave the drawn-on piece. I don't. It's like, there we go. It's like sticky stuff, stay where you belong. Okay, sticky stuff goes in the garbage. Fabric goes with the rest of the fabric. We need our 4th square. Let's see. I don't need you anymore. So now I need, let's start with the cherries. Come on, there we go. And one of the cherries went over here. Put it as close as we can. And it's a 1/2 inch, that should be fine. And this one they show kind of down here. Again, a little over 1/4 inch, so a little close, but not too bad. I'm going to do this one first, kind of up and over. And this one's there. And this one's sticking out sideways. All right, now the leaves. It's on this side, it's on this side. The leaf does go over. A 1/4 of an inch. Barely, but yes. Okay. And this leaf and goes down here, on top of there. I apologize, it started raining very suddenly. Very big drops, which means it'll end quickly. That's too close. All right, let's see here. It's very loud rain. Better keep an eye on that to make sure you guys don't lose me. And there are our cherries. Brilliant. Press. Yeah, the sun's still shining over there, so hopefully it won't kick us off our stream. It's done that in the past. And now we see where we're at with our 4 pieces. Milestone number 1 complete. Or sorry, number 2. Number 1 was getting everything cut. Milestone number 2, getting our applique stuck on. Milestone number 3 is going to be to blanket stitch all of the applique, which I anticipate will take a while. I truly thought that this would be a one-day project. I'm thinking at this point it's going to be 2, which works out because I have Thursday available and I hadn't figured out what I was going to do for Thursday yet. With that being said, I believe that what we will do today is get a couple of these appliqued, and after we get the first 2 done, we will stop. And then on Thursday we will do the second 2 applique, and we will piece everything together and quilt everything and get our buttonholes in and our buttons on and things, and do all of our finish work. But today we will just do 2 appliques. Let's see which ones are. So those 2 look really easy. And I say that and that's not necessarily true. So they've got a lot of detail work on them. The pear has some detail work on it, as does the apple. When I say detail work, on here they've shown that the stems in the leaves, how do they do that? Let's see, do they draw them on or do we have them, does it say? Don't have all the instructions there. Those are just my templates. That was silly. Okay, so it says machine stitch around each piece. Then put everything together. Position the tab. Turn right side out. Make the buttonholes. It does not say. No, it does not. So it does mention in our list of materials that we need a black and a brown fine line permanent fabric marker. So what they must be doing is on the details, so here like the grapes, there is a dotted line on the grapes and on the leaves. With black and brown markers, fill in details of grapes and leaves as shown on applique pattern. Brush pairs with cotton swab and cosmetic blush. That's where the cosmetic blush comes in. It's no wonder I didn't notice it the first time. I had to flip through that 3 or 4 times before I found it and go through 2 different copies of it. All right, so yeah, all we're doing is stitching around. So we will do these 2. I anticipate this should be done by 2 o'clock today, and then we'll just run for 3 hours on Thursday instead of 4 hours. All right, so setup for the machine. Zigzag plate, so not straight stitch plate that I use when piecing, zigzag plate. Regular foot, not the 1/4 inch foot that I use for piecing. This is going to give us the ability to make different stitches, different designs. The stitch that they recommend and that I typically use is in my applique stitches menu, and it's got a whole bunch of options, but I am going to choose this one. It's a blanket stitch. It stitches over 1, then it goes straight for 1, and it goes around. Let's see, if I turn this light on, is it going to bother you? Yes. What if I do this? No, it does not. There we go. Gives me a little more light down here. You don't necessarily want to start in an obvious location. And I am going to fix my stitch down so that it won't pull back up. And I have now put my needle down right along the edge of the fabric. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to go forward a stitch. Oh, first it's going to knot it, sorry. It's forward, sideways, back, forward, sideways, back. You want to keep the fabric edge right in the middle of your presser foot. I wonder, do I have a special foot just for applique? I am not certain. Let's look at our feet and see what they say. Zipper foot, top stitch foot, elastic guide foot, edge stitching foot, edge joining foot. Those are the big ones. Double welt, single welt, hemmer, bias binder, adjustable bias binder, piping foot, clear piping foot, hemmer, 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 narrow braided cord foot, specialty bobbin case, gimping foot, braiding foot, clear 2 to 3 millimeter embellishment foot, maxi bead foot, mini bead foot, Chanel stitching foot, clear seam guide foot, straight stitch foot. Oh, that's the same as the 1/4 inch piecing foot. Blind stitch foot, roller foot, adjustable buttonhole foot, narrow zipper foot, clear B edge stitching foot, clear B edge joining foot, clear view S foot. Oh, that's a good one. Candle wicking foot, specialty candle wicking foot, marking foot. And I believe the other bag contains all quilting. Interchangeable dual feed foot. Clear presser feed kit, yes. 5 groove pin tuck foot. 7 groove pin tuck foot. Spanish hem stitch foot. 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/4 inch. Clear stitch in the ditch. Open toe. Clear open toe. That might give me a better view of what I'm doing down there. Clear open toe free motion foot, free motion guide foot, free motion spring foot, sensor cue foot. And then the feet that go on my walking foot, piping foot, felted foot. Nope. Nothing specifically for applique. So this is the foot we're using. So my machine does have another blanket stitch. Same thing, except instead of going 1 space forward, it goes 2 spaces forward every time. And that would be great if I was doing something that's good if you're doing something bigger. With the detail in this, I want to keep it smaller. So I'm starting to get buildup on the needle. It specifically states on the packaging for this product that it does not gum up your needle. That is an inaccurate statement. Every time I use it, it gums up my needle. So you want to make sure that you are using a needle that you're not going to want to continue using. And depending upon how much applique you are doing, you may end up switching out the needle during the project. And let's look here. You can see the difference, not very well, between the two. The pear's been stitched around on this side, but this side hasn't. And wow, that fabric is showing. That's a lot of holes. No, it's just because it's bright white. Okay, never mind. Thought the needle was too big. No, it's just the it's just the color of the thread. Running? Yeah, we're still running. Good. I shouldn't have started where I did, because I need to end here, go up here, start and stop, start and go. That was silly of me. Should have realized I wasn't going all the way around. So now we just need this little bit here. A little bit there. Now we're going to go down the side. What are we looking at time-wise? Yeah, we're still doing okay. There's a lot of little threads along the way here. Pull out the big guns. So we've gone around the pears. Let's go around the stem. This should be challenging. I'm going to lower the stitch, the amount it goes over. I'm going to pull out my gadget here. If you don't have one of these, just get yourself a chopstick, because I want to hold this in place. I don't want this. I know that we stuck it on there. I know we used heat. But I'm just afraid it's going to move a little bit, and I don't want that to happen. Sorry, thought I heard a loud noise. I was afraid that I'd lost you. You seem to still be here. Back threads, and I am going to get a different foot. Somewhere in here I remember seeing a wide those were all rollers. Where did I see it? Not that one. Bead foot, piping foot, no. There was an open toe foot. Is it in the other bag? Let's see, it's in this bag here. Open toe foot, there it is. Okay, let's take this one off and put this one on because I was having a hard time seeing where I was on that leaf or on that stem. So now we're going to try it this way. I can definitely see the fabric better with this foot on. And I can see that it's not moving. It is stuck to the white, so that's good. What are we doing? We're going forward? Yep. There we go. Trim. Put the stitch back to standard width. I think you can see like down in this area, there's an awful lot of white around those stems. So I'm glad I lowered the stitch length or stitch width, because it would have been a bigger mess if I hadn't. And yes, this is bright white, not off-white. This is bright white. But I figured I was using the bright white background fabric. And I thought this would work. if you wanted to, you can change colors on every spot. So you can match to every single spot on here. First of all, I don't have that many cotton threads, and I'm using cotton, which I guess I could break out my polyester, because this has got the batting. There's not really batting, it's the Insulbright, and it is not cotton. Well, now that I think about it, anytime I do applique, I don't have to worry about it, because the steam seam is not cotton either. we have the blanket stitch performed on the pairs. I'm going to come over here. And this storm does not seem to be getting any better here, and all I kept doing while we were sitting over there stitching, I kept looking behind me to see if you guys got disconnected or not. So we're going to call it a day for now. This took about 40 minutes to do, so that is 120 minutes. So it should take, the last 3 should be about 2 hours. And then the rest of it, which is basic quilting or putting things together, should be some piecing and some putting together. We should be able to get that done in the last 2 hours. So Thursday we will have a full episode of finishing up the fruit quartet pot holders. And if you're watching this at some point in the future, then just go to part 2. It should be in, well, it's in a playlist right now. I'll have to see if I separate it out to a separate playlist. I'm going to have to separate it to a separate playlist, but that's what we're working on, and we will finish it up in part 2 and get that all straightened around and get our pot holders made. So you all have a great